Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Prajakta from the marketing team at Lead. On behalf of Lead, I would like to welcome you all to the live webinar on NEP and NCF. At Lead, we are big on sharing knowledge and expertise related to school education. So we have started this series of free webinars where we talk about various topics relevant to school owners and principals. The reason to speak about NEP today is that though it's a very widely discussed topic, few people really understand what it's all about. Hence, for the benefit of the larger audience, for today's webinar, we have invited Leena ma'am, who is a senior fellow at Observer Research Foundation, Mumbai, and who has closely worked on the draft NEP 2019. Given her extensive experience in the education sector, we are sure you'll find this session very insightful. So without further ado, I would request ma'am to kindly initiate the session.
Thank you, Prajakta. It's a pleasure to be among you all. You are all, Lead School associates in some way, either already associates or planning to get associated, which means that you are all, very conscious of the need to improve the quality of education. So, I would like to, I'm very happy to be among you all and to be speaking to you. So let me just take a minute to just share my screen. Yeah, here it is. I hope you can see the first slide. Prajakta, can you tell me?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start because there's a lot to discuss and I'm looking forward to your questions. So, I always start my NEP talks with the vision statement because that's very important to understand what was it that the NEP, the drafting committee of the NEP, the Kasuri Rangan committee and the members who drafted it were thinking about. And so the vision statement of the NEP is that the purpose of the education system is to develop good human beings capable of rational thought and action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper and creative imagination with sound ethical moorings and values. It aims at producing engaged, productive and contributing citizens for building an equitable, I was just putting on my stopwatch, inclusive and plural society as envisaged by our constitution. So you see, you'll notice that this is all talking about, good human beings and good citizens. There's not that much talk about content of what we are teaching. That's something to keep in mind. And elsewhere in the NEP document, it says that the whole idea is to emphasize on the development of the creative potential of each individual. It is based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capacities, and we know what cognitive capacities are. They are literacy and numeracy and higher order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking and problem solving. But the NEP also wants to emphasize aesthetic, social, physical, moral, and emotional capacities and dispositions. So this is the aim with which the NEP has been developed. Now, here is a one-slide summary of what are some of the most important recommendations of the NEP 2020. Please forgive the crowded slide. I thought it's always useful to have a one-slide summary. So the three most important areas of focus of the NEP is early childhood care and education, and we'll be discussing that more. The other thing is to ensure that there is foundational literacy and numeracy. Every year, Pratham comes out with analysis which says that grade 5 kids are not able to do grade 2 math and so on. So that has to be corrected immediately. And this third one is not something that is terribly relevant to private schools, but we see that there's a huge amount of dropouts in schools. By the time kids reach 10th standard, out of every 100 kids who come into school, only about 56 remain. So we need to stem that. We need all children to finish 12 grades of school. We want children to be in school until 18 years. And so we want universalization of education till grade 12. And the NEP also includes a lot of research on what is known today about how children learn and, from neuroscience, from psychology and so on. And based on that, we have come up with a new 5+3+3+4 architecture. We'll talk about that. And of course, there was already a question before my talk started about the new national curricular frameworks and the state curricular frameworks that will be decided. And then, of course, the NEP, if it has such ambitious goals for its children, then it has to have a central role for teachers. And, the role of teachers has been very neglected in the last few decades, and NEP does a lot to correct that. We'll talk about it. And then, of course, there are, innovative ideas like school complexes, so that, we are a country that is unable to invest 6% of our GDP in education, even though successive governments since independence have promised to do that. So school complexes are innovative ways to share resources. And so that's something that private schools will also be a part of. That's why I underlined all schools. And of course, a lot of governance reforms that will also have an impact on private schools. So let's move on. So since we talked about private schools, I thought it's good to put in one slide about private schools. And as you all know, by now, over 45% of schools are private, and 78% of higher education institutions are private. So private sector is doing a very large job in education in the country. And the NEP encourages the private sector, and it especially encourages the philanthropic private sector, for obvious reasons. And of course, what it does in terms of encouraging private sector is to say that private sector will be treated on par with government schools when it comes to, simplifying regulations, providing autonomy with regard to determining fees and so on. But these are not these are recommendations of the NEP. Whether they will come, we will have to wait and see. But of course, access to resources, and then, private schools have a lot of advantages, because private schools have always had play schools and kindergartens attached to them. And that was a huge advantage, because parents wanted to send their kids to school by the time they were 3 or 4, and they could go. Private schools also claim to teach in the English medium, which is important to parents. And so parents have been flocking to private schools. Private schools have the agility to change ways in which they deliver curriculum, which is a very, very, very big advantage. And of course, private schools are also governed very actively. I said active governance. I didn't say good or bad governance, because it's not always good. We all know that, because there are many private players who are not doing enough for their children. And certainly they're not doing enough for their teachers, because they offer very suboptimal work conditions for their teachers. And NEP would like to weed out such poor quality private schools, or not immediately. Give them say 10 years or more till 2030 to improve their quality, or else get weeded out. And the instruments to use for weeding out will be things like the key stage assessments at grades 3, 5, and 8, and then also the school quality assessment and accreditation framework that is supposed to be coming, which is a recommendation of the NEP. So as you must have seen this picture in the NEP document, the big change is that the previous policies always started at grade 1 from age 6 and did a 10+2. This sector was ignored, but knowing how important early childhood is for a child's development, the NEP has started from age 3, seeks to bring age 3 to 6 into the ambit of formal education. And then it changes the structure quite a lot. It actually clubs grades 1 and 2 along with this 3 to 6 and creates a foundational stage. We'll talk about that. These two stages are also the preparatory and the middle stage are dependent on the ways in which children learn. We know how children learn at these ages, and so that's incorporated. And then the big change is the fact that, the 9, 10, 11, 12 will become a single block, which represents an opportunity for all the lead schools for sure. And we'll talk about that a bit more. So let's go back and talk about early childhood care and education. Again, this is a crowded slide I keep for my NEP talks. I want to highlight only the two statements in blue that, or maybe this one too, that nearly 85% of the brain development of a child occurs before the age of 6. This is the reason why quality ECE must be available to children for all from ages 3 to 6 years. 0 to 3 is too young. So they will remain with the Anganwadis or at homes. The parents are free to keep their children at home. And the policy emphasizes the criticality of early childhood education because the advantages of ECC persist throughout a child's life. This is the slide that, sort of somehow completely alerted us to the fact that early childhood was so important. Professor Vinita Kaul, who was then a professor at Ambedkar University in Delhi, brought this to one of the early consultations that Dr. Kasturi Rangan had organized in 2017. And this is a picture that compares the PET scans of a child with a healthy brain and an orphan who was institutionalized. So you can, there's no words, a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. You can see what the difference is. And this is what we wanted to capture, that children must have stimulation in early ages. So let's come back and ask the question, why are we clubbing the 3 to 8 in a single foundational stage? And this is very important to understand, that because we are going to drop an approach that we had for a long time, which was age-appropriate teaching, okay? Until age 8, children have varying rates of development of various types of abilities. So you will see some kids speaking before, very well before the age of 1, some kids not speaking till the age of 4, then social skills, some kids not very happy to interact with strangers, some kids not, motor skills, their ability to hold things and work with them, music and movement skills, all of them, all the abilities of children grow very, very differently till the age of 8. Around the age of 8, they sort of all equalize. So this is why, since they don't follow age-based educational trajectories, we said that they must have this one block where we wait for all the children to attain all the abilities that they need going forward. So during this stage, children also learn best through play-based, activity-based, and inquiry-based, multi-level, flexible styles of learning and interaction. So multi-level learning is also very important at this stage. This is something that many people reject, but it is actually true that it is multi-level education is important. So, and towards the later part of the stage, by the time the child turns 7 or 6 or 7, children begin to adapt very naturally to the more prescriptive style of learning, indicating that teaching learning processes can transition to a more formal style using basic textbooks, etc. So this is what we call school readiness, and it is very critical to the child's success. So what was happening was that very young children were coming before the age of 6, were coming into grade 1. They were not school ready. They were not in a position to learn in the prescriptive way that they were being taught in schools. And that was impacting them very much. So, and then the other important thing is that children are very often expected to learn a new language when they come to school, because their home language is different from the medium of instruction. Certainly, if English is a medium of instruction in private schools, then many children don't speak English at home. So you need this window of time till they are about 8 years old, till they finish grade 12 to grade 2, to make sure that they are fluent in the language before you start teaching in that language. Okay, and we'll talk more about language in a minute, actually. So here is my slide on language, and this captures what we know about language learning about children. So what we know is that the brains of children during the foundational years of 3 to 8 are very plastic when it comes. You can wire it in any way when it comes to language learning. And it's also known that if children learn to speak 2 or more languages in early childhood, they have greater neural activity and denser tissue in the areas of the brain related to memory, attention, and language. You have to just Google this and see, and you will see how much is known about the advantages of learning multiple languages when the children are young. And we in India are very lucky, because we have so many languages in this country that in any home, actually, it's not just the parents, but there are grandparents and uncles and aunts and staff, the cook and the maid and the driver, or anybody else, neighbors, who all speak different languages, and the children have the opportunity to learn these languages. So our kids have a natural advantage because of the number of languages we have in this country. And also, early exposure to languages helps children distinguish various sounds within a language, and also the nuances of grammar and sentence structure. One thing that is not very well known, I mean, is known, but it's not integrated into education, is the fact that children learn languages by talking to people, to other adults or to other children. And this is a fact that can be made very good use of to give young children additional advantages with regard to language. So what I've said here is that one way to expose children to multiple languages is to have your teachers and staff who check what languages they are comfortable in and are able to their mother tongue, and they have good vocabulary and can teach well to the children, and they can all speak their own languages consistently to the children. In designated languages, you can say one teacher who's good at Hindi can speak in Hindi, another teacher who's good at some other language can speak to their children in another language, and the children will learn all those languages. And that's a huge boon that we can give to the children. Of course, we must remember that while we talk about learning multiple languages, we are talking about speaking, listening, and recognizing alphabets. You can put up alphabet charts on the walls in the eye level of the children and so on. But writing, which involves very fine motor skills, must only be introduced in one language at the foundational stage. That's a cautionary statement I wanted to say. So this is why the medium of instruction debate that has raged in our country for so long, it continues to rage, that are we teaching children in English or are we teaching children in the regional language? It's something that we should get over, because, there is no dispute about the fact that children learn best when they are thinking in their mother tongue or home language. Please remember that a child is actually thinking from the day he or she is born. They are doing perceptual learning. They are using their hearing, their sense of touch, their sense, all their senses, to learn actually. And they learn how to walk, they learn how to talk all by themselves without interference from us. And so their children are already thinking, and they are thinking in their mother tongue and home language. And so, when they come to school, if you want to teach them English and the regional language, which very often is different from mother tongue. For example, I'm in Karnataka at the border with Maharashtra in Belgaum. There are many Maharashtrians living there. They would be speaking Marathi at home, and the regional language that will be taught to the child in school is Kannada. So, these languages will have to be taught to the children. And the important thing is to realize the value of bilingual education. And bilingual means two languages that are equally well taught. It's not that one language is more emphasized than the other. That's what we've been doing in our language policy in the country. In all these years, we have first language, which is the medium of instruction. Then we have a second language and a third language, which very little is taught. And so the language benefit is actually being thrown away. What we have to do is to teach the children bilingually, and that's something that all of you can do research in and incorporate into your education. And NEP has responded to all the scientific knowledge that we have, and said that children will learn 3 languages. But we made 2 very important changes in the language formula that exists from the language formula that existed in the past. We've said teach up children up to 3 languages, but all of them before the age of 10. We used to have third language getting started in the 5th standard, and that by then the children are 11 or 12. So that's too late. So we teach all the children 3 languages before the age of 10, and select any 3 languages. It doesn't matter, because once the child has ability, the child's brain has been wired for language learning, the child will learn pretty much any language he or she needs to know, including foreign languages. So I'll rest the language debate there, okay? Now we'll talk about the preparatory stage, which is the 8 to 11 years, grades 3 to 5. And here the children are 8 to 11, like we said, their language ability is still very high. And we have to use this stage to make sure that all the children who haven't attained bilingual capability can attain bilingual capability. We must also ensure that children have attained foundational literacy and numeracy, which is very, very important, because till now we have been trying to build edifices on very weak foundations. We never checked. The children were learning in a foreign language, and we were teaching them, oh, you are in first standard, you need to know this, you're in second standard, you need to know this, without checking on the variations in their abilities to learn. So we need to fix all that, create a nice strong foundation on which we can build the rest of the edifice of education. And that is what this foundation stage is very important about. And like I said, since the children are now school ready, you can introduce formal classroom teaching learning processes and build on the pedagogical styles that we had before. And this is also the stage where you can introduce science, maths, even programming if you want, and teach them in English, or either in English or bilingually in languages and English. So for example, science and technology, which has a lot of vocabulary and is internationally based vocabulary, could be taught in English, whereas social sciences and other subjects can be taught in the regional language. So that's very important. And also, we need to teach them art, not just languages, but art, music, physical education, and so on. And these can also be shared with school complexes, hopefully in the coming years. And then we move to the middle school. By the age of 11, children begin to develop the capacity for abstraction. They become capable of higher level conceptual learning with their peers and teachers. So, and this stage will focus on subject learning and the introduction to abstract concepts from across all subjects. And of course, you continue bilingual learning, which is done in Germany and now France. I mean, France has also accepted that English is the language now of international language of conversation and diplomacy. And so they are also teaching their children to be bilingual. So students at this stage, at every stage, actually, students must be given opportunities for experiential learning to be able to connect their education to everything that they see around them, and become aware of their habitats and the natural resources. And you'll see that children are naturally interested in these things. They find policemen very impressive. They find, if they are watching TV and they're watching animals in the ocean, they want to become wildlife photographers. So that natural interest in their habitat has to be enhanced, so that all the they are very well connected to their habitats and to all the professions around them. So NEP has also recommended that vocational education be introduced at this stage, not only to introduce different vocations to the children, that somebody is a cook, somebody is a driver, but somebody is also a programmer or a poet or a musician, and so on, to introduce vocations and to help children start thinking about what are my interest and ability. That's not to say that whatever they think is interesting now will be what they do in their careers, but it's important to give the child the ability to start thinking. They will keep changing. I use the two examples, policeman and wildlife photographer, because that's what my son wanted to be. At age 5 he wanted to be a policeman, and at age 8 he wanted to be a wildlife photographer, and it keeps changing. He's now doing a PhD in science, in neuroscience. So it keeps changing. So you don't have to be afraid. You have to just introduce vocations. And the way NEP introduces vocations is there are two very clear streams. One is vocational exposure, which is what I was talking about, that you can start very early, that you can introduce children to different professions that are there in this world. And, just take them on trips, show them around. We often do this in colonies. We bring a potter and he comes with this mud and he makes the pots, that's a profession. You take them to factories, you take them to exhibitions, and so on. The other is the preparation for the world of work, and both of these streams will be reflected in the NCFs. So like I mentioned, you have to visit farms and health facilities and so on, and teach them programming and computational thinking and so on. Vocational education for the world of work is for students who want to start working at the end of grade 12. There are many children like that, because in India, economics determines that children actually need to start working to help support their family, to supplement their family incomes. And so if children can get certification in one of their vocations during 9, 10, 11, 12, they will have the opportunity for a much better paid job. And then comes the secondary stage, which like I said, is a very big change because it wants to integrate. And this is a difficult integration because, we have nowadays, we have 10 standard and we have PU colleges. And, the colleges don't want to go back to being called a school and so on. But, there is space for both sides to grow. What we have recommended is that PU colleges be allowed to introduce 9 and 10, and schools that are going up till 10 be allowed to open 11 and 12. And we need that doubling of capacity because, like I told you, that the dropouts after 10 is also very large. The number of people who go into 11 and 12 is very small. But if the NEP wants to keep everybody in school until grade 12, we need the doubling of capacity. And so then if you make the 4 years into one block, then you will actually be able to give them, lots of choices. And this stage will be about multidisciplinary study, building on the subject-oriented pedagogical and curricular style of middle school, but with greater depth of engagement and critical thinking. So we have recommended a semester system so that this will allow the students to sort of, take a subject, learn it, finish it, set it aside, either build on it, if you do math, you can do advanced math and so on. Or if you want to move on and try new subjects, you can do that. And so we've recommended that there should be a set of core subjects and some electives. And I believe that this will be reflected in the NCF when it comes. And then students must, like I said before, students must have subject options that cater to their differing talents. If a student is good at sports, he or she should be able to develop that sporting skills while they are still at school and within this school, and not just by parents having to pay for extra classes after school, you see. And that same is true for performing arts, fine arts, vocations and so on, okay? And like I said, students also begin to think about their future, so they must also be assisted to do so. And, career and counseling and guidance are important inputs. But this is a very tricky subject, career counseling and guidance, because we should not use this wrongly to channel kids into directions that we think they should go. We are a caste and class-ridden society, so we shouldn't say, oh, this child should just go and do this because that's the only option open to them. We have to genuinely use career counseling and guidance to help the child to do what he or she wants to do, which is then the only way in which the child can excel, actually. So we need to really keep the focus on the child. And the big change, which the 4 structure does not highlight, but it is the biggest change, is the fact that we are taking the pressure off of the board exams. And then we are saying that because there will be a semester system, there will also be a modular board exam, so that a student can write 10th standard math exam in 9th standard, no problem. If the student feels ready, please finish it, And then we are also saying that there will be multiple attempts to take an exam. So you thought you are ready and you wrote the math exam in the 9th standard and you felt, oh, I didn't do well enough, I think I can do better. You will be allowed to take another attempt. The NEP had said multiple attempts, but I think the government has said logistically it's too difficult to give multiple attempts, but there will be 2 attempts at least, So then the schools will be finally able to stop teaching to the board exams, because the board exams will also only test core concepts, principles, critical thinking, higher order skills, and so on. So then once the pressure on the board exam lifts, then, the teachers and the students can concentrate on learning. And that is the major advantage that we are looking for. And of course, in order to, when we lift the pressure off the board exams, the idea was not to demean the board exams. The idea was to give students and teachers the opportunity to concentrate on learning and on developing 21st century skills like critical thinking and problem solving. And then we had said that because of that, then we have short supply of higher education opportunities. So how do children get decided where they get admission to? So we said there should be an SAT type entrance exam for colleges. And what the governments have done is done what is easier for them, and they have implemented the entrance exam first before lifting the pressure off the board exam. So as you all know, the kids just wrote the undergraduate entrance test, the common undergraduate entrance test just now, but it was supposed to be done in sequence actually, And we're hoping that the simplification of the board exams will also help to ensure that children are not labeled as failed. I mean, what does a fail mean actually, really? It just means that child either, didn't get taught properly or is not that interested in that subject. That's fine. Let's move on and teach the child something else that he or she needs to know. So we actually hope that this will also help to keep children in school until grade 12. Okay. And then, of course, if you want to put the development of students as per their individual aspirations center stage, then the people who come into the spotlight are naturally the teachers, because it is the teacher who is in the classroom looking into the eyes of the student, knows what the student is capable of, knows what his aspirations are, and can help the student achieve this goal. So therefore NEP actually corrects a lot of the problems that were there tries to correct. We will see the implementation, and the first thing to correct is the initial teacher preparation. We all know that B.Ed colleges have been proliferating without control for a very long time, and they are standalone. Many of them are standalone B.Ed colleges, and they even offer degrees for a price. In my office every week at least somebody will get a call saying, do you need a B.Ed degree? We can give it to you for 2 lakhs. So that has to stop, and B.Ed education has to become meaningful again, and therefore B.Ed will now become a 4-year undergraduate program that will be held in multidisciplinary environments, so that students can also not just learn about education, about the psychology of children, about pedagogies and so on, but they can also think about which subject they want to teach. If they want to be subject teachers, or if they want to be class teachers of very young children, then they can focus more on early childhood care and education and so on. That will happen. And what the government is also doing, which is a very good thing, is to ask some of the best institutions in the country to start to offer teacher preparation programs, and also, of course, in-service teaching. So pre-service and in-service training of students teachers is very necessary, because too many students have passed through B.Ed colleges that have not trained them well, not prepared them to train students for 21st century skills. So this will become a big activity in the future, and it will be based on the National Curricular Framework for Teacher Education that is currently under preparation. I'll come back to that in a minute. And of course, school accreditation processes will give more importance to the working conditions, autonomy, and support given by school managements to their teachers. Okay. And so we talked about the National Curricular Framework, and as you all know, the NEP has recommended 4 different National Curricular Frameworks, and this is completely new. We've had I think 3 National Curricular Frameworks in the past, 3 or 4 maybe, I'm getting my numbers wrong. There was in 2005, 1998, and then 2 more before that. Maybe we had 4 before. And so we had, we had only school education National Curricular Framework, but now we have a separate one for early childhood, which will talk about 0 to 3 also, and 3 to 8 also. And then we'll talk about school education, we'll talk about teacher education, NCF for teacher education, and NCF for adult education. We have 280 million adults in the country who are not literate. And in today's time, that is not a good thing. We should actually support them and use school complexes and evening classes and so on to teach functional literacy and numeracy numeracy they will have, but functional literacy to these adults actually. And so stepwise processes for creating these are underway. As you all know, every state has created committees on 25, sometimes 26 themes, because some states like Karnataka, where I live at the moment, has a 26th theme, which is a school complex, and they have all uploaded their papers into the portal for the National Curricular Framework teams to do. I myself have worked on vocational education. I was chairperson of the team for vocational education in Karnataka, and I'm also a member of the national team for vocational education at the national level. And the final NCFs will be prepared under the guidance of a steering committee that is being chaired by Dr. Kasturi Rangan. It's in the press a lot, so you all know it. And then, of course, once the NCFs are ready, then curriculum and textbooks will follow. NCERT textbooks for the CBSE will follow from these. And then, but then the NCFs will be taken up by the states to create their own SCF, state curricular frameworks, in which they will include state-specific inputs and considerations. So curriculum, like I said, has to be connected to the local community, to society, and to the life around them for students to be able to relate to it. And so that freedom the states will have. And then within the curricular frameworks, there will also be scope for teachers and school managements to incorporate local elements, content, and flavors, local flavors into the curriculum. And somebody asked, when will these be ready? I believe that the national curricular frameworks have to be ready by the end of this year. And I think the aim is to have, at least the NCERT curriculum and textbooks ready for the next academic year. It's a very tight timeline, but I think everybody's working very hard, and we should probably be able to make it. Now, all this time from the beginning, from the vision slide, we've been talking about critical thinking and problem solving ability and creativity and communication skills of students and so on, which are all sort of called 21st century skills. And I wanted to share this picture with you. It's from a World Economic Forum report on 2016. It's one of the nicest, statements about all the literacies and competencies and character qualities that children need. So what it does is that it splits it into literacies like foundational literacy and numeracy, but scientific literacy, ICT literacy, financial literacy, and cultural and civic literacy, and then breaks competencies into how, what are competencies? Competencies are more than skills. They are, a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So they are really something that how do students approach complex challenges? And so the competencies are critical thinking and problem solving, creativity, communication skills, the ability to communicate your thoughts, interact with teams, and so on, and collaboration skills. And then, of course, you must teach children, a lot of, they are born with curiosity and initiative, but you need to teach them, but we need to not kill those, and then teach them to persistence and grit, to rise from failure, to adapt to situation, to learn how to be good leaders, and to be aware of their social and cultural milieux. So this is something that can be taught. I don't want to get into it. This is another very beautiful representation of 21st century skills based on the original 1996 UNESCO report that actually, the title was Learning the Treasure Within, which sort of introduced the concept of 21st century skills. It talks about learning to know, learning how to be lifelong learners, for which you need these, then learning how to get things done, for which you need decision-making skills and negotiation skills, learning to be, which is your personality-related self-awareness, communication, resilience, and learning to live together, which requires empathy and participation. So I don't want to get into all of that. You people are educators, you know more than me. I want to make this my last slide. I just want to say that the challenges of implementing NEP 2020 is very large. The reforms in 2020, NEP 2020 are not incremental. They are transformational. They try to overhaul the system completely, and this is always difficult. The policy has articulated where we would like to go, but it's only a policy document, okay? The destination is clearly visualized in the policy, but the pathways have been left to individual institutions and governments to work out during implementation, and this is where our challenge lies. But we must remember that NEP represents a genuine opportunity for children to, for us to give our youth a chance to succeed in a globalized world, in an international setup in which science and technology have a very large role. You can see that. Look at the devices, look at the opportunities coming out of the internet and so on. So, but NEP provides, and to do this, NEP provides a compass to us to think about what is best for students and bring focus on helping students acquire 21st century skills. on learning how to learn and become lifelong learners. It's not the information that you know, it is what can you do with what you know versus what do you know, which was what our examination system was promoting in the past. So I want to stop here. I had this slide about strategic implementation. School managements need to support their teachers, and teachers in turn need to ask themselves, how best can you add value to their students? You need to help them develop their character, their human capacities and skills, and most importantly, ensure their mental health. This is really the teachers interacting with the students all the time, and they are our first line of defense against mental health problems for children. Help students develop understanding of society. I've talked about this before, and enable students to become lifelong learners. So these are the references to the reports that I talked about. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving such detailed insights into NEP and NCF. There has been so much around there on the internet, but hardly anyone is confident about, really understanding what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure the audience has a lot of doubts and questions to ask you. But before we proceed to the Q&A session, I can see there are a lot of people here who are not currently partnered with Lead. So for the benefit, I would like to invite Mr. Aditya Gariyar, who is the VP brand at Lead, to give an overview of what is Lead, what we do, and how Lead is already implementing many recommendations shared by NEP. And post this short overview, we can then proceed to the Q&A session, wherein you can pick a few questions that are asked by the audience.
Thanks, Prajakta, for the introduction, and thank you, Leena, ma'am. That was a really, really fascinating talk, and I'm sure that there are everyone is quite eager, and we have a lot of questions which people are keen to fire away, right? And I am in this slightly precarious position of that speaker, who sits between the attendees and the lunch time. I feel that's a kind of graveyard slot that I got. But so I'll not take too much time. I think what I'll do, the educators, school leaders, teachers, and other attendees today, the idea is to give you a very small 5-minute, less than 5-minute kind of a summary. For a lot of you who are not from Lead, just a quick primer on, who are we and what do we do, and I'll leave it at that, and then we'll get back to the questions, right? So we are India's largest school edtech organization, right? We help in transforming schools, right? Our mission very clearly is to, make excellent education accessible and affordable to across the smallest town and cities in the country. So currently we serve almost 3,500 satisfied school partners. We work actively with them. We are present in more than 400 cities. We have almost 25,000 teachers in these schools who we work with and engage with on a daily basis. And we try and bring a transformation in the lives of almost 1.4 million students, right? So that's where we are today, right? But we are not satisfied. We are not. We have still have, if we want to transform the education landscape in this country, we would need to partner with excellent folks like many like you who are attending this webinar, to make an active participation and partnership will result in helping us achieve our goals, right? So the audacious goal that we set for ourselves is that by 2026 we want to transform the lives of 26 million students. So that's the kind of audacious goal, because if you were to just look at the statistics, and you guys know this better than us, right? India has 270 million school-going students, right? If this number was a country, this would be the 4th biggest country in the world, right? And I know, and I'm really inspired by the kind of efforts and initiatives that all of you guys here in the as educators are putting to bring about a transformation. And it's transformation at the core, right? It's at the ground level. This is not supplemental education. This is not about after school, right? If we want to make a true impact in the future generation, we have to do it at school. It has to be within the 4 walls of the school, right? So that's what we firmly believe in. Prajakta, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah. So what Lead offers is essentially it's an integrated system. with three areas of impact, right? We try and solve for all the stakeholders in the education ecosystem. The school team, which is the school leader, principal, the teachers, the students, and the parents, right? So our system has three key components: teacher capability system, where we help convert your already great teachers into rockstar superstar teachers, right? And how we do that is by helping them upskill and improve their knowledge, as well as by enabling and helping them with a lot of their class prep, right? So the idea is that today a teacher spends a lot of time on class prep, and we feel that if this one pain point or this one area of preparation can be simplified, then it would help her perform at a far better level, right? The next area that we really impact is student development. So we are the only school edtech organization in the world which guarantees student learning outcomes, right? And what we firmly believe is this, right? We believe that today the education-based ecosystem, sort of forces students to often resort to rote-based learning mechanisms, right? To only excel in academics. But what if there was a system which could enable the student to help improve their conceptual understanding of subjects, and which many of you are sort of engaged in actively trying to solve for, helping them with critical thinking skills, which Leena ma'am also spoke about, right? Development of 21st century skills. Help them collaborate better, help them communicate, remove self-doubt from those areas, and also give them exposure, right? So we feel that if we are able to help the students with these things, right? How do you take a problem and break it down into its constituent elements so that you can solve them, right? How do we help students learn frameworks which they can then apply into their everyday lives? That's what we truly believe in, because we believe that the ultimate aim of any great education should be to enable the student to be successful in life, right? So, and to be successful in life, you need confidence to overcome your self-doubt which can stem from not being able to speak fluently, self-doubt which may emerge from not knowing a concept deeply, self-doubt which can emerge from not being able to think critically, right? And self-doubt of not having been exposed to enough number of a platform, or participating in events which give you exposure to public speaking, how to speak with a larger audience, right? And lastly, our system is a world-class technology which takes care of all your requirements from administrative point of view, from an academic point of view, helps integrate your the learning pathways between your teachers and your students. But I'll leave it to those of you who are interested to sort of let us know, and we can have a more detailed chat on this. Project, if you can just go on to the next slide. And what I was referring to in my earlier slide, right? So we really guarantee this. This is a lead school guarantee, right? Guarantee a 2x improvement in teacher skills. We guarantee a 70% learning, a mastery in all subjects of your students. And what we have seen is that, and this data is tested, that every year of participation in the lead school program improves the student's English by 1.5 years. So the student learns English at a 1.5x faster clip, or the other way to put it is that 1.5 years of learning gap is reduced for every 1 year spent in the lead school system, right? And with that, I'll get to my last slide. And let me not speak here, but why don't you hear from one of our very happy and satisfied school partners? Yeah, Prajakta, you can just play the video.
Lead was already doing it, कैसे NEP ने बोला कि practical based education होनी चाहिए, right? Learning by doing. तो लीड ऑलरेडी हैड ऑल दीज कॉन्सेप्ट्स, जहाँ पे बहुत सारी एक्टिविटीज़ ऑलरेडी प्लान थी, चाहे वो मैथमेटिक्स है, चाहे वो इंग्लिश है, चाहे कोई भी सब्जेक्ट है. तो एक्टिविटीज़ वहाँ पे थी, एक तरह से वो बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग सिस्टम था. लीड वाज थिंकिंग मच अहेड. मैं तो ये कहूँगी कि मतलब इट वाज क्वाइट प्रोग्रेसिव. वो कुड विजुअलाइज के आने वाला टाइम कैसा आने वाला है एंड कैसे ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हो सकती है. तो इसलिए मैं ये कहूँगी कि बहुत ही बड़ा इसका सपोर्ट रहा. पहले ये लग रहा था कि टीचर्स वो सेइंग कि बहुत सारा टाइम वेस्ट हो जाता है जब हम एक्टिविटीज़ कराते हैं. हम इतनी देर में तो इतने चैप्टर करके बार बार लिखवा के याद करा सकते हैं. तो वो रोट लर्निंग थी, यहाँ पे याद करा सकते हैं. तो लीड ने ये बोला कि याद कराने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, लेट द चिल्ड्रन अंडरस्टैंड. राइट, यही NEP बोल रही है. What is new in education? New in education means something which the child could create after understanding. उसका अपना कुछ बनाया हुआ हो, so that he has sense of achievement and accomplishment, right? कि मैंने किया है ये, मैंने ये सीख के ये understand करके किया है. It is बहुत सारी चीज़ों में अभी जैसे पीछे छुट्टियाँ थी, लास्ट ईयर की बात है, कोविड टाइम था, तो कैंप लगा हुआ था इसका, लीड का कैंप, समर कैंप था. तो हमने उसका नाम दे दिया थ्रू स्ट्रॉ हैट करके. तो बच्चों ने बहुत सारी चीज़ें, इतना कुछ कुकिंग में सीखा, कुछ डांसेस सीखे, कुछ और एक्टिविटीज़ सीखी. एंड व्हेन वी केम बैक तो बच्चे स्कूल आने शुरू हो गए. देन सेक्शन वाइज आई टॉक्ड टू चिल्ड्रन एंड आई सेड कि अच्छा आप ये बताओ कि व्हाट डिड यू लर्न, आपके समर कैंप में क्या था, आपने लीड के समर कैंप में क्या किया और आपको क्यों अच्छा लगा. सो नो दे सेड हमने ये किया, और डिफरेंट ग्रेड्स थे. जब हम एक स्टेज को अकम्प्लिश कर लेते थे तो हमें सर्टिफिकेट मिल जाता था. तो सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ अप्रिसिएशन जो आ जाता था लीड की तरफ से, वो दैट यूज टू गिव विंग्स टू चिल्ड्रन कि देखो हमने कुछ अचीव किया, है ना. तो आई थिंक इट इज़ वेरी गुड. एंड डे बाय डे आई थिंक जब पहले इतने अहेड थे लीड के जो एजुकेटर्स, जो इतना कुछ देख सकते थे, विजन कर सकते थे, तो आने वाले टाइम में भी बहुत सारी नई चीज़ें इसमें ज़रूर आएंगी जो आई थिंक अगेन इट विल बी अहेड ऑफ ऑल द थिंग्स. आई एम वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट अबाउट इट.
Thanks for that, Prajakta, and for all the attendees of the program. For those of you who are not a part of the Lead Network, if you wish to know more about us, please drop us a message on a one-to-one. Unicast the message to us with your coordinates, and we'll get in touch with you. Right? The Lead system is a plug-and-play system which is already NEP compliant, and we'll be happy to partner with all of you to bring about a transformation in your school. With that, over to the questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Aditya. Shall I take over actually and read the questions?
Sure,
Prajakta
ma'am.
had mentioned that I should. So in
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Q&A session, there are about 13 comments. And the first one I had already seen and I had mentioned it in my talk. When is the new NCF coming? Will we have a new syllabus and curriculum from the next academic year? It was asked by Nitin Dharmawat. And the answer is that the new NCF is supposed to be out by the end of this year. And we will have a new syllabus and curriculum from the next academic year. The answer is yes to that question. Then Saloni Gupta asks, experiential learning is the way ahead, but how can we make it scalable and equally effective? So here I would say that experiential learning brings center stage the teachers. It's only when the teachers kind of assist the students, get involved in doing experiments with them and guide their learning, that experiential learning will get effective. And in order to make it equally effective, the teachers have to have a good idea of what the aim of the experiential learning is. And many teachers already know, and those who don't know will need some in-service training towards this new curriculum and the new pedagogy styles that is being recommended by this curriculum. So it's coming actually, but it's the teachers who will actually anchor experiential learning. It cannot be done by writing exams and by hearting. And this is, adults are very scared to let this go. We have done this for too long, too many exams which involve, by hearting answers. So I think that has to stop. Sunil Jain asks, will there be new books based on the new curriculum? Is our system geared for publishing new books? So the answer is yes, there will be new books based on the new curriculum. And yes, since we have 260 million kids in our system, it's very hard to publish books so quickly for everyone. But today we have the support of technology. You can have them on the cloud, on servers, allow students to access the material on apps till the books come. I think there is no, though when children are young, there is no substitute for having a book in your hand to be able to flip through it whenever you learn, especially in homes that don't have too many books. Many kids come from homes where parents can't afford too many books. So books are important, but while the books are getting printed, we can use technology to access them online. Also, the NEP has said that a lot of the experiential learning practical work can be done through worksheets. And worksheets are something that can be printed locally, for just, if you have a class of 30, you only need to print 30 copies. So if you distribute the work of printing, then it will get handled quite well, actually. Yeah. The next question is by Ram Mohan Shetty. He's asking, when planning a new school, what steps to be followed? I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on that, but I'd like to say that, children need spaces to work collaboratively, and so you need to keep that in mind. I mean, and for example, even the setup of the classroom that we have, that the teachers in front and the children are facing them, that also needs to change, which is that children sit in groups and the teacher moves around between groups talking to them and supervising their work. Everything needs to keep in mind that we are trying to encourage the children to be creative and innovative. And so, gardens and green areas very important, because it kind of calms children's minds down. Play areas are very important. Interactive between, don't separate the primary school and the middle school and the high school. The interaction between children of all ages also helps them learn. So these are some principles that I'd like to share, but the rest, I guess, Lead School can help you with deciding about new schools. Okay. So Utsarga Mandal has just said, good morning. She hasn't asked a question. Sunita Babu says, NEP has thrown a challenge to the entire society to look at the education system with a new perspective. How far do you think we as teachers would be able to bring this whiff of fresh air into our teaching learning processes? I believe that we can do it 100%, but it has some preconditions that, the teachers who require training should get the right kind of training. The teachers should get the autonomy. They should get the support of the school managements. And, if things go wrong a little bit, it's not the end of the world. We try. If it doesn't work, we come back and try again, so this measuring teacher, I know that in many schools, teachers are evaluated on the basis of the numbers that their students get for exams, and that has to stop. Actually, that teachers it's a vocation. You want to be a teacher, and you are trained for it, and you are good at it, and you should be allowed to do what you do best. So encouraging our teacher is necessary, and if we do that, we will be able to breathe those fresh air, because we have, what is it? We have 1 crore teachers in the system, nearly 8.5, 9 crores, 90 lakhs are school teachers. So if that many teachers can actually go out and implement the policy in the right spirit, the fresh air will be everywhere, actually. I do believe that. I believe that very strongly. Ram Saini asks how to connect with Lead. I will leave that question for the Lead team to answer. Kritika says, good morning and thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Mohammad Iqbal Badana says, what type of exams for 5 to 8 class will be from now, ma'am? So, the exams are all internal. I mean, you will be doing formative assessment largely and some summative assessment. Summative assessment should not be thrown out of the window. They are needed. What I was talking about was the key stage assessments at grade 3, 5, and 8, which will be nationally checked. But it is an exam not to evaluate the students, it's an exam to check the health of the system, to see whether the NEP is being implemented in the right spirit. And more details about that will come when the implementation plans come. At the moment, the government is very preoccupied with the NCF. Let us wait for a year or so. We will know more at that time. Utsarga Mandal says the RT 2009 Act talks about 25% reservation will be given to the weaker sections of society. This hasn't been called out in the NEP. I would like to hear your views on the 25% reservation and whether it should have been explicitly called out in the policy document. I'm not sure, Utsarga, what you mean by calling out. I mean, one of the things that we did when we were developing the policy was to say that, we will keep in mind what is it that our job is. Our job is not to question the executive, which is the parliament that has passed the RTE Act. Having said that, so we didn't call it out because we are not commenting on the policies of the government. Actually, we are trying to recommend to the government how to improve education. Okay. Having said that, we all know that the 25% reservation was meant to sort of, try and break this class system and so on and so on. We have said in the NEP that the RTE needs to be reviewed. And by that, we had in mind that, the only way to review is to look at data and what has worked and what has not worked. Have the children who joined private schools on this 25% quota, have they succeeded? Who are the children who joined? Did the beneficiaries actually benefit, or did somebody else who would have anyway paid the fees get the scholarship? These are questions that need to be asked, but it is a very data intensive exercise, and NEP has recommended that, and it will be done. I'm sure of it. Kritika Akasha says, I would like to ask if I'm planning to design a skill development workshop for senior secondary school students, then how the curriculum should be changed to suit the need of the secondary school students. I would like to say that, of course, while we wait for the NCF to come and the curricular framework, that is, and then the curriculum will come and the textbooks will come, Kritika, you don't have to wait. You can do these development workshops along with whatever it is that you're teaching now. What you have to do is relate the concepts that you will introduce to the children in the skilled workshop to things in the textbooks and curriculum already. So there will be principles that are already mentioned. And if something is missing, you can supplement it. So there is nothing to stop you, especially if you are at a private school, to innovate and start doing skill workshops for the kids right away. The curriculum and curricular framework will look into, the number of hours and contact hours and so on. So some things will change then. But for now, there's nothing stopping you from going forward. Neet Upadhyay asks, what is new curriculum for the toddlers age 0 to 6? You have to wait for the early childhood care NCF to come out, and then we'll see. But basically, it's just about stimulating the children. So it's music and movement and, local poetry and songs and that kind of thing, and developing motor skills by playing with appropriate toys. Recognizing alphabets by, you have to put those, the children are very small, so you can't put the alphabets on the wall on top. You have to put it on the wall at their distinct groups, and you don't have to say anything. The children will look at it and they will absorb the shape of the letters, and then when you start teaching them, they will get it very quickly. So a lot is known about how children learn, and it is time that Indian schools and Indian teachers figure out the things that are known and incorporate it into their classrooms. Okay. Rani Kumari has asked, at the end of 22 or 23, I'm not sure what this question refers to. If it is curriculum and textbooks, then it is the NCF will come at the end of 22. That's the curricular framework. And the textbooks and curriculum are supposed to come in the middle of 23 before the academic year begins. And those are the projected dates. Sunil Jain asks, does this mean there will be a new curriculum from July 23? The answer is yes, there should be a new curriculum from July 23. We have to watch the NCF effort closely. There's a lot of consultations going on and so on. So if it leads to some delays, we won't know. But the aim definitely is new curriculum from July 23. Shweta Haria asks, looking at wide variety in student interests like sports, arts, vocation, how do you suggest schools can support them all with on-field limitations, and does NEP have any guidelines for the same? So I mentioned this in passing that, schools, there are many schools in a neighborhood. So the resources that are needed for schools can be put in one location called a school complex and shared between schools. So, some schools could come in the morning on Monday, some other school can come in the afternoon on Wednesday, and so on, and share not just the physical resources, but also the PE teacher and the arts teacher and the, language teachers and the vocational education teachers and so on. So that is the thought, that it is not possible for every school to invest into every resource that it needs because it costs too much money. So the idea is to develop a shared model, and that has to just be innovative in the financial model and innovative in timetabling who uses what when, actually. And that's surely something that we adults can do even with technology help. So Kritika again asks if I'm launching a green energy IoT workshop. I think there are a lot of questions. No, should I read them all, or should I?
No, ma'am.
What would you like me to do? I'm just seeing that there are. I thought there were only 9 questions, but now there are 31. So
I'm sure there are. You can just pick and choose whichever.
So then I would have to be able to read them. I'm just following.
No, ma'am. So ma'am, I think you've been very, very generous already with your time and this thing, So what I think will be the best way to go about it is that we'll share all the questions with you, right? And we could get back to the folks at a later point of time. You can share your responses with us, and we can get back to them with answers to their questions. Yeah. I wouldn't want to impinge on your time any more than you've already been very kind to extend your talk by almost 15 minutes.
So there are questions regarding training of teachers, and yes, I think that it's important that all teachers get some some of them only need some orientation. What is the expectation from them, from the NEP? They only need that orientation, that, you don't teach them the content, you teach them, what the concepts are and how to apply them and to relate them to everyday life, and so that's very important. So some teachers need orientation, some teachers may need content. You people already have a super teacher app, or where you are helping them with lessons plans. That's a great beginning, but the teachers must be able to go beyond lesson plans and add their own inputs into what the teachers learn. So yes, teacher training is a very, very important part of that school management should do. And there's a question about a B.Ed degree. Will a 4-year B.Ed degree hinder adults and private school companies from pursuing? Will there be a change in qualification requirement? Of course not. Teachers who are already in school are not going to be thrown out because of that. This is about the new generations of teachers who will come in through the 4-year undergraduate program. Post-COVID, importance of degree courses has dropped drastically, and skill-focused short-term courses building. This is true. That is why I said that, skill development, vocational education has to begin be introduced in middle school and begin in senior secondary classes, because there are many students who will stop their education after 12th standard and not go into the degree level. Even now, out of every 100 eligible kids in the age group of 18 to 23, our GER is only 27%, which means only 27 kids are going into higher education. The rest are stopping after school. So we need to give them enough training and enough orientation so that they can go and be productive in their lives and be able to earn a living and support families. What are the matrices on which schools will be evaluated? I think that is coming. The school accreditation, assessment and accreditation qualification framework is coming. I think it will be taken up after the NCF. Like I said, the NEP is a very complex document, and so it has to be implemented in sequence. The government of India, has put out a document called Sarthak. I've seen it mentioned in the lead documents, where it talks about all the tasks, some 297 tasks or something that has to be taken up in order to implement the policy. So there will be some sequencing. You have to wait and see. But I think that you don't, as private schools, you don't have to wait for what the government is doing. There are many freedoms you already enjoy. So especially all up to before the board level, kindergarten, primary, middle school, and so on, you can just start implementing the spirit of the NEP. That you can do without any problem, and what are different modes of assessments to check competency of learners? Lead School will help you with that. Somebody just says, thank you. I'm just quickly running through some questions. I may have missed some. I apologize. If anybody needs my email address, Prajakta will give it to you. As we go ahead. No, the redesigning of the curriculum, including technology, is happening. Saloni Gupta is asking about redesigning curriculum. Whatever you can do on your own, which is not prescribed by the boards or something, please go ahead and do it. And the rest, the NCF will incorporate. The CBSE and ICSE will be wiped out? No, I don't think so. I think, like I said, that, the curricular framework and the curriculum will come. It's a guideline to all boards and curriculum builders. And the first set of curriculum and books that will come will be NCERTs. And as you know, the CBSE board actually uses NCERTs textbooks. It is the only board which doesn't make its own curriculum and textbooks. Okay, the NCERT makes the curriculum and textbooks, and the CBSE does the exams. Whereas most other boards do both the curriculum, textbooks, and the exams. That's not very healthy. But many other of the boards are state boards, and state governments will be involved in picking up the national curriculum framework, converting it into the state curriculum framework, and then converting it into the state board books and so on. So it's a very extensive effort. So I'll leave it here. I think we have touched on most of the.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think,
and somebody says, will previous teachers change or continued? I mean, teachers will remain, actually. They will just be assisted to think in the framework of the NEP. So, and they can be oriented, they can be trained, they can be supported. And they can be supported by their peers. You see, teachers, there are senior teachers and there are junior teachers, they're young teachers. So the senior teachers in every school can support their juniors to actually understand what the NEP is about. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Sure. So, ma'am, whoever's questions have not been answered, we'll ask them to send a mail to marcom@leadschool.in. And we'll collate all the questions and send it over to you so that you can prepare some brief answers for all the questions.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Please share your feedback on this webinar so that we can keep conducting these webinars and get some ideas on what kind of topics you are looking for. I've shared the link in the chat.